Between dreams and reality.
Between wealth and poverty.
Between the city and the country.
Between hope and despair.
Writing on air from East Leeds FM.
Great. Thank you very much, Elliot, for the jingle, and it's lovely to see people here in Studio 3 in our radio theatre, and especially if you haven't been here before, it's great to see you. So we're doing something quite different for us tonight. We're actually broadcasting a workshop. We've never done this on Writing on Air before, really looking forward to it, and I'm going to let Caitlin and Sol tell you all about it, but it's going to be fascinating. I'm really looking forward to it. So, hello Caitlin, hello Sol.
So, this is the Home on Stage workshop. I'm Caitlin and this is Sol, and we've been involved in the Leeds poetry scene for the last year, doing other events previously in our lives, and we've noticed there's a few things that just aren't taught to young performers and you're expected to know. And obviously that can make performing quite intimidating. It can make it quite difficult, and sometimes when you get to a certain point where you've been performing for a bit, you don't want to ask those questions because you don't want to seem like you don't know. So, we figured the best thing to do would be to tackle all that right now, get everything out of the gate, all the questions that you may think are a little silly, everything that you've never been taught, cover it all in one workshop and give you the chance to really try these things out, work with a mic, maybe for the first time, maybe for the millionth time, but just get more comfortable and feel more at home on stage. So, I'm Caitlin. My kind of qualifications for doing this workshop are that I am a performance poet, I'm a spoken word artist, I've performed at Shook Arts, Good Emotions Live, I've done Leeds Poetry Festival, Ilkley Fringe Festival, I am the host of an experimental monthly open mic called Bone Down, and we've been running events in Leeds for the last few months. I've been going to different events, doing different open mics, working with different groups in different parts of the community as well as getting published. So I've had a little bit of experience with it. When it comes to the technical side, Sol's the guy.
Yes, hello, I'm Sol. I'm decidedly not a performance poet, but I do have quite a bit of experience in performing music, and also I help Kate to run Born Down events.
So the first thing we kind of want to go over is there's multiple different names for different kinds of events. And it can seem a little intimidating when you're invited to do something or you're applying for something and you're not quite sure what it is. So the easiest thing for us to do is go over the differences between open mics, spotlights, featured sets, and performances. So an open mic, which we're holding after this, right here in Chapel FM tonight, which will give you the chance to perform and share some work and get these skills into practice. Usually gives the performers a chance to share their work in a setting that's supportive. So it allows for all expression from poetry and spoken word alongside comedy and music at certain events. But there's usually specialised open mics as well. On the mic at Leeds Poetry Festival, hosted at Left Bank, is a specialised poetry and spoken word night. If you're looking for something with a little bit more of a range, you might want to try Crooners Club in Leeds, or even Wordspace in Horsforth, as they hold prose, poetry, even some comedy and some music. So usually with open nights, you'll do a set that's possibly between 3 and 7 minutes, usually around 5. They'll let you know at the start of the night or when you sign up how long your set will be, and you can get in contact with the organisers or sign up right there in the location. If your time does run out before your set, you may be cut off just because they have to fill the time with as many performers as possible. However, slams are a completely different thing. Poetry slams are amazing and they give you a chance to really, really work on your skills and get better as a performer, but they can be intimidating due to the competitive nature. So poets are graded in comparison to a sacrificial poet who usually goes first. Then they'll each perform and they'll be graded on their performance as well as their word skills. You can get a prize, you can be ranked best, and they can be really valuable, but they usually are stricter in terms of time and content, and you're expected to memorize your poems most of the time, which means for a lot of people who struggle when they're beginning to memorize, it may not be the best choice for you. Spotlights, featured sets, and headlining are all essentially the same thing, depending on which event you go to. So usually, you'll be asked to perform at this event. Somebody will reach out to you, the organizer of the event, and you'll be asked to do a bit of a longer set. So they'll tell you the time once again, and you'll be used to promo the event. And it can be a really, really amazing thing for just raising your visibility within the scene and getting that actual experience. Showcases, which we held one last night right here as part of Writing on Air, the Queer House Party showcase. That's usually a bunch of poets, performers, artists, spoken word artists who are invited to come and read their poems. Usually they have a short set, you do multiple poets in a night, and you all celebrate around one theme. These are amazing events. You get to see quite a few really, really talented poets, and you get to interact with them, and that's all awesome. The last thing you could possibly do as a poet, as a spoken word artist, other than interviews, podcasts, little things like that, is a performance or a show. Usually, you'd pick your pieces, you'd pick your poems, and you turn them into a show. This thing gets taken to cabaret-style nights, talent show-style nights. You can take it to festivals. You can take this show on tour. Whatever you want to do with it, it's all down to you. I've done this before. I did a show based around every poem I have around sex, and I created an elaborate costume and a performance to go with it. This can all be part of it. You can put in different parts of visual art in with these shows. They're the chance for real expression and creativity. So, does any of that make sense? Have we got any questions on any of this? Do you want to raise your hand and I'll pop over? We all good? Awesome. Now, you've got a question.
So, what if fundamentally you are god-awful at memorising things, even shopping lists?
Oh, well, we will get to this a little bit later about memorising your poems and whether to read off your phone or not. The only real thing that requires you to memorise your poems will be a slam. It's competitive by nature, and it's something that not every poet likes to do. I don't like to do them. I don't want to do them, because I don't like being forced to memorise my poems. If you do like that, if you like the competitive nature, go for it. They can be awesome. They're so fun to watch. Honestly, get yourself to a slam. But maybe that's just not the one for you. Does that answer that? Awesome. Right, let's back into the fundamentals. How to introduce yourself. This can be something that's really, really daunting, even for me, coming out to do this workshop. How do I make you all believe I've got the credibility to do this? You don't know who I am, or you might have seen me a few times. The key thing about introducing yourselves is you're letting people know what they're in for with your performance. So if there's any important context for your poems, for me getting up on stage and talking about pride, it's quite important for a lot of people to know I'm a queer poet. Sometimes giving a little bit of context on your background, who you are, what you're about is really important. But try to keep it short and sweet. People are there mainly to hear your poetry, and you have to give yourself as much time as possible to share that, because it's great stuff and we want to hear it. In a similar nature, we have bios. Writing bios can be the bane for most performers and artists and anything else that requires one, because how do you get yourself into 50 words or 10 words? Same thing there. Try keep it short and sweet. Let people know what you bring to the table. Mention your name. Your preferred pronouns can be really, really important when people are going to be talking about you or sharing your event. Feel free to add your personality into it. I like to mention that I like horror films or slashers, just so people know that may not be as straight-laced as they could be expecting. People usually mention what sort of stuff they write, if they perform, and where they're likely to perform, and perhaps some of their publications, just so people can go back, read your stuff again, and see where you come from. And when it comes to your publications, plugging your stuff is key to your performances. If you want people to come back, if you want people to find you, if you want people to be able to love your stuff and keep loving it, they have to know where to find you. So plugging your stuff when you've got the chance, when you're on the stage, can be really important. Just remember that there's times where it might be appropriate or might be a little bit inappropriate. If someone's doing a book launch and you're there to read, may not be the best time to announce your tour or your own book launch, really. But if you're at an open mic and you've got a performance the next week coming up, maybe end your set and let people know, hey, find me on this date at this place, or even just plug your Instagram. Social media is so important to poetry nowadays. You don't need it to succeed at all. You can still 100% be a poet and a performer without social media, but it's the easiest way for people to find you and know what you're up to and keep up with your events. So if you've got a social media, if you've got a poetry account, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, try get your URL out there, try get your username out there when you're doing it. That's really it for plugging your stuff. It doesn't need to be a big thing. You don't need to do 5 minutes at the end of your set to get it out there. It can be as easy as, hi, I'm Kate, and I've got this workshop I'm writing on air on Friday the 25th, and you can see me afterwards reading my own work at the open mic. So timing is critical for that. You don't want to be talking too much about your introduction. You don't want to be spending too much of your set plugging your stuff either. Once again, we're here for your poetry. We want to hear your poetry. So try make sure that that's the vast majority of what your set is. Most of the times when you're booked for a gig, you'll be given a time for your slot. This is the maximum time you should really be on that stage for. It's just polite. It's just nice. If you're at an open mic and you've been given 5 minutes, everyone in that room's got 5 minutes. And if you go for 10 minutes, somebody else doesn't get the chance to read. And that's just not very nice for them. It's a courteous thing. We in the arts love to support each other. We love to bring each other up. I love going to open mics and meeting new people, even if I'm not performing myself. And that means I want everyone to get that chance on stage. So just try to be courteous when it comes to timing. If you've got a 7-minute set, great. Think about it beforehand. You've got 2 1.5-minute poems. Stick a 2-minute, 3-minute poem in there. Use the rest of that buffer time to do your introductions, plug your stuff. That way, most of your set is your poems, and I get to hear all of it, and I love that. Which is where practicing beforehand really becomes important. When you're writing your poems, one of my favourite things to do, after reading them out a few times, making sure they sound great orally, that it all works great, that it flows well, is to keep practicing how as I would perform it, and time it. The minute you're practicing, check the time. Is this 1:30? Is this 4 minutes? That way, when you're building a set, you can just have a look. You can be like, hey, that one's 3 minutes. I can do that one, and then just these 2 smaller ones. This one's 5 minutes, but I really like it, and I'd like this to be the majority of my set. You've done it. That's it. You've already got it sorted. Keeping a note of your timings is so important, and I wish I'd done it a lot sooner when I started performing. Also, practice however you want. There's no way to practice. You don't have to sit in your room alone with your phone and your timer and your stopwatch going over and over. Practice in front of friends. If they care and they want to read your stuff, do it with them. They're not going to worry if you stumble over the words or if you rush it or you go too slow or anything else. They're your friends. You've got a writing community here that would love to hear your stuff. If you want to practice, I will be there for you. Reach out and utilize your community. If you do it best recording yourself, do that. Record it, watch back. But practicing your stuff can be essential when it comes to making sure that you're as confident and prepared as possible for your sets, because that's how it goes best. You don't want to be running in there choosing your set on the day that you haven't practiced. Okay, I'm reading from my phone here. I am checking my notes on everything I've got to say because I've got a lot to say. And I think that's fine. I don't think you have to get your phone out of your face or not bring your poems and your book or whatever it is. You don't have to memorize unless we have a slam. Personally, and this is a little bit of a controversial statement, I think it's ableist. I think it's a really ableist thing to assume that everyone has to memorize and nobody can have a comfort device or anything else like that with them on stage. If you need your phone, take your phone, that's fine. With that said, there are ways to perform with a phone or a book that doesn't take away from your performance, and there are ways that might slightly get distracting. I've written everything out here. I've practiced it beforehand. I've read it out. I know, frankly, roughly what I'm going to say. I'm checking it a few times as I'm reading, as I would with a poem, because it's the easiest way for me to know what I'm going to say. But the whole time, I'm not standing up with it in front of my face looking like this. Because when you do this, nobody can see you. Everyone wants to see you. If you're getting pictures taken, you're not going to get any pictures like that. I did a performance recently where a poet had a book up to their face the whole time. And it was an amazing performance, and being there live in person was awesome. But they didn't get any pictures because you couldn't see them. So they've got nothing to take away and use to promote the fact they've done that. They've got no, other than the memories there, everyone else got pictures and they didn't. And people want to remember what you look like. They want to see you at other events, and they want to be like, hey, I loved that poem about the jam. So it's important to let people see you. It's also a thing. If I'm going to read on the mic like this, but then I'm going to sit and talk like this. Once you've got your phone in front of your face, I can't hear you. I can't hear what you're saying because you're talking like this. And you see, it goes straight away. So you want to make sure that if you are, it's at a height that you're comfortable with. And we'll go through all of the microphone basics later, don't worry. Keep it to the side. Put it on a stand if you need to. Have it somewhere near you, and that way we can still hear you, we can still see you, you can still deliver your amazing, amazing work, but you don't have to memorize anything. So, any questions about any of that? Because that was a lot. We all good? Awesome. I also wanted to say, you can make it part of your act. Like I said, I've done shows and performances before where I've had more elaborate costumes, I've had a theme, I've done it that way. Recently I did a show at Good Emotions, which is an amazing variety show held at Wharf Chambers. They've done another one at Left Bank. It's a wonderful thing in Leeds, and you should be getting out to support these creatives if you can. I was the only poet there, which already made me feel quite insecure. And I hadn't remembered all my poems, I hadn't memorized them, and this was a big gig, this was my first paid gig, and I had no clue what to do. But I was going to be dressed up in a vintage-style burlesque outfit, fit with a long trench coat I was going to take off. So I got my vintage typewriter, and I got some cards, and you can see a few over there. I decided to type out all of my poems and utilize them in my act. It was this look, it was a part of it, it felt vintage, it felt nostalgic, and it was all the better for it, and I was less worried. I knew that I wouldn't get lost with the words because I had the notes right there, and it didn't take away from anything of the act. So if you're going for a certain look, go for it. Don't be worried about anything ruining it. And if you need your phone, if you need your notes, please have them. It's okay. And if you do want to wear a sexy little burlesque number, you can do that. This is it. It's an art form. You can wear what you want. I'm turned up today and I'm doing this workshop and I'm hosting an event later and I'm in Dickies, old Doc Martens and an old shirt. Yesterday, I was in a vintage 1950s Sears dress. It's up to you. Your expression on stage is just as important as the words you're going to say to a lot of people because the way you look is going to influence what they hear. It's going to influence what they take away from it. So if you want to dress in however makes you feel comfortable, full goth, corpse paint, that's totally cool and that's sick. If you just want to go up on stage and feel your most comfortable and your most confident in the clothes you wear every day, do it. Because your performance will be better when you're wearing something you're confident in. The only thing I may not suggest when it comes to outfits on stage is a hat. Because, Sol, would you mind going up to the mic?
Yes, hello.
Can you see Sol's face very well? No. It's kind of, especially with the glasses, you're taken away from the face, it gets a little bit difficult. And now you can see him.
You see what I mean? This is because I'm a bad performer.
So that's the easiest thing, just to make yourself a little bit more noticeable and a little bit more recognizable for the audience, because you do want to be recognized. You want people to want to see you. You want people to remember who you are and come up to you again. These are great things. And also, I want to hear you. If you've got scarves on, if you've got hats on and everything else, where's your mouth? Your mouth has to be by the mic for me to hear that. So, does all that make sense? We're going to get into a bit more of an interactive bit in just a second, but these are all the basics I'm putting out here. Physicality. I'm a very physical person. I like to move around. And for that reason, I like a roving mic because I want to be able to go around and do what I want. When I'm doing shows and performances, sometimes I'm going to want to crouch down and I'm going to want to make it feel intimate and I'm going to want to make it feel seductive. I'm going to want to make you feel a little bit unnerved. Whereas sometimes I'm going to want to be up and I'm going to be talking because I want you to feel like you're my best friend and we're having a conversation about how shit that guy is. And I want to be right there with you. It just depends what you want to do. The stage is yours for the time you are performing in it. Remember that. As long as you're being safe, as long as you're not covering any time for any other performers, as long as you're not actively insulting or assaulting or hurting people, get on stage, move around, do it, do what you want to do, put your arms out, do a dance and a jig while you're doing it. It's up to you. Be as physical as you want. The main thing, does it add or does it detract to your performance? Because if you're reading me a very delicate poem and you're going all out and you're moving and you're doing everything else, am I really understanding what you're saying? Is it really something that fits with the words? Is it something that goes with it? You've just got to consider what you're wearing, what you're doing, how you're speaking, how does it correlate to the poetry? Because that's the most important thing. Awesome. Any questions about that one? We all good? Okie dokie. So, anyone involved in the workshop that's here right now, I'm going to ask you to come, and I've got some little poems printed out. They are mine. I just had them on hand. I'm not trying to make you read my poetry. There's also a selection of other poetry books there. If you could just come and grab one, because we're going to have you do some practicing, and it'll just give you something to read from. That's not your own work, so you don't have to be worried about showing that right now. So go for it. No, you're going to do the microphone. What's it gonna be?
While we're waiting, do you know of any open mics that are Do you know of any open mics that are specifically geared like for younger people, like under 25 or even teenagers in town? Does that exist anywhere that you've come across?
If I'm not wrong, there's a writing group here for young people, isn't it? Right in Chapel FM.
Starting in January, hopefully. But we've had one in the past. It's not been specifically around performance, but when we do start it, Caitlin, it'd be great if you could come and do a workshop with us.
I'd be happy to. I know of a few that are targeted at older teenagers, young adults. Specifically, Leeds Beckett's got one called Speakeasy. The Arts Uni has one. The Leeds Uni has one. And they don't say that you have to be over 18 to go to any of these. They are society-run events, so they're primarily aimed at university people. But they should be open for most young people.
Oh, great. Okay, well, that's good to know about because we'll share the word about those. So.
Awesome.
Okay, back to the workshop.
Okay, so this is the fun part because now I'm going to make Sol come up and speak. So Sol has a history of working in musical stuff, entertainment, mainly as a bassist, but he spent quite a while working with tech, working with microphones. And when I first started reading and he first started seeing me, he did take me to the side a few times. I was like, Kate, the microphone has to be in your face. I can't hear you. And he'd come up as soon as I stood up and start twisting the mic to get it to the right height and everything else. And just from being around that, I've learned a lot. And I think all of you could probably learn a lot from it too. So, Sol.
Hello. I'm actually going to give this microphone back to Kate. And I'm going to use this one. Because the first thing, as you can see, I've come straight up to this mic and started speaking into it like this, because it's too short. And this is the thing that they don't tell you, that no one teaches you, is how to adjust a microphone. So you'll go to your first sort of open mic, you'll get up on stage, you're so nervous, and you've practiced all day, and then you start speaking like this, and that's not into the microphone. And it's really, really simple. This microphone stand is pretty much the one that you're going to be dealing with. And it's really, really easy. What you do is you twist this bit. It's like, it's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. You twist that,
And now look at that. My back's straight. I can project my voice. There's this little twisty bit here too. It does that. For anyone listening on the radio, it's going up and down. Something that people do that's really, really awful is that they'll grab this and just yank at it, which will move it, but it doesn't like that very much. So yeah, that's my bit about mic stands. The other thing that people tend to do, and I think it's something about the way we sort of view ourselves on the stage, is that we view the microphone as like a barrier between us and the audience. And what that means is sometimes people will start to sort of move around it, like this, and kind of not speak into it. There's a zone. It should pretty much, it's kind of gross, but it should be touching your mouth, really, or like right in front of it. And that's pretty much it. Microphones are really, really simple to use, but it's one of those things that people don't teach you, and why would they? Do you know what I mean? So that's that. That's my bit. Thank you.
Go Sol. That's essentially how this works. Keep it close to your mouth as you're reading. I know we have a kind of want to move, to be physical, to express our words with our movements, but the microphone, when you're using a standing mic, it doesn't come with you like this does. You talk like this, and you talk like, you can't hear that, you can hear that, because you have to keep it with you as you go. You have to make sure that you're facing the microphone and it's close to you, or else I'm going to lose half your words, and I don't want that, because I want to hear your beautiful poetry. I want to hear everything you've got to say. So please keep yourself near the microphone, or keep the microphone close to you. You'll notice I'm not using a standing mic right now. I'm using a roving mic, and that's because I like to move when I'm doing these things. You can, though, take that microphone off its stand. Sol?
Is this on? It's on. I'll do this too. You do this, watch. Pull it outwards. And then you untwist it. And then you have a microphone. And this is a lot easier, probably, because you can keep it next to your face like this. And then you don't have to worry. You can move around all you like.
And that's that. Does that all make sense to everyone? Does everyone want to have a go at coming down, adjusting the microphone to your height, and reading a little bit? Does anyone want to do that first? There we go. Come on. What's your name? Woo!
What I found when I first spoke into a microphone is how you can't really see other people and the microphone's right in your face. But I guess that's something I'm gonna work with and work on. So I've got a poem here.
Do you want to maybe pull it up so that you're leaning down a little bit? You're hunching. So if you twist it.
This is the demonstration that we've been neglected. I don't have to. I thought we might be a similar height, but there you go.
I think a little bit higher would probably be a good
A little
idea,
bit
because you're
higher.
bending your knees.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. And I'm twist this thing as well. This bit. Okay. Okay. So is that okay?
That's it. Woo!
It's quite daunting, isn't it? So I've got a poem here called Love Letters. Damn, unintended, uninvited. You opened me like an envelope and read my content. A federal crime you committed. Enveloping me in your arms, within the bed, within the cold, I allow you inside.
So the key is there. You did an excellent job at adjusting the mic and get it to the right height. But you feel like because you're near enough the mic, it's okay to leave it as it is. But when you hunch down like this, it may be okay when you first start reading, but very soon you're going to be doing that and I can't hear you. You have to remain near the mic, and it's much easier to adjust the mic to be near you than it is to adjust yourself to be near the mic. It only takes a second to do. Once you're comfortable with it, you can do it easily. I like to adjust the mic if it's an awkward height for me while I am doing my introductions. So I'd come up on stage, I'd say a little bit about who I am into the mic as I'm adjusting it, and then as soon as I'm ready, as soon as it's the right height, I can start my poems, I can read them confidently, and I can feel more comfortable. So, should we try with a little bit of a height difference? Somebody to Eve, I think you'd be a little bit shorter. Come on up.
Hello, yeah, I have to really stretch up for that, so that's not going to do at all. So let's try it out. Maybe a bit higher. I don't think I've ever done this before. I think every time I perform, I just kind of trust that it will be where I want it to be. So it's good to actually have experience of doing this.
I would suggest you try the little twisty knob and bring it down a little bit for yourself.
This one?
Yep.
Which way do you twist it? Oh, yeah. There we go. It's pointing towards me. Yeah, that's good, I think. Actually, up a little bit. Yeah, I think that's good. So I'm reading from, I was going to try and do the thing you said of introducing as I was adjusting, but not quite there yet, just a bit too much multitasking for me. But I'm going to read, I just grabbed this poetry collection randomly. It's by a poet called Daphne Clark, who I've never heard of, but I chose it because it has Microsoft Word art on the front, and that's really fun to me. So I'm going to read a poem called Hebridean Encounter. We reached the butt of Lewis, far-flung lighthouse at Hebrides' northern tip. Surging waves, keening winds, blue skies, granite cliffs. In sea-filled cleft below, 2 seals appear, floating and flapping, dipping and diving, enjoying ocean's freedom. Tourist bus pulls up, horde of excited cameras cover the crags, relishing the scene below. Across the wave tops, a call goes out. Come on, kids, tourists above. Instantly, the cove erupts, 3, 4, 5 seal pups strutting their stuff for the visitors. Back floating, fin flipping, tail chasing, wave surfing, lively as youngsters at the seaside. Cameras click, videos roll. Too soon, cameras leave for the next photo call. We turn, look back to an empty ocean. The seals, too, have departed. Thank you.
Woo! That was wonderful, Eve. I do want to take the chance in this workshop just to mention that you did the thing. You were amazing at making eye contact and making sure you're looking at your audience rather than just staring at your phone. That's so important. That's the key to making sure that they're all remaining engaged and you're reading to them rather than reading at them. But you were turning away from the mic, because when you turn away from the mic, I can't hear you. You have to ensure that you can look around with the mic near you. If it's standing in one place, just make sure that you're staying your mouth close to it rather than letting your mouth move completely away. Does that make sense? Awesome. Because there's so many things to consider. And when you're first trying to think about microphones, it can take your mind off the performance. When you're thinking about the performance, maybe you're not thinking about what the audience hears. When you're thinking about the audience, what the audience hears, maybe you're not thinking about if you're comfortable. There's so many things to consider, and it takes time to get it all together, and I still do these things wrong, and a million artists I know. We had some amazing, amazing poets in here last night who have performed around the north, and the majority of them didn't know how to change the mic because nobody teaches you these things. And that's why we're here right now, to go through them all and to give you guys a little bit of practice and get you comfortable doing this so that when you get up on stage, hopefully later on at the open mic that's right here in Chapel FM, you'll be able to do all that and feel comfortable doing it. The only other thing I thought I'd mention in terms of just before we let some other people have a little practice if they want to, is the microphone is your friend. You don't have to hide behind it. It's not there to make you feel intimidated, and it's not there to make you feel like you've got a space between you and the audience. It's there to let the audience hear you. It's there to make your performance better. So we shouldn't really be scared of it. We should just use it as a tool in the same way we use our books and our phones and our pens and everything else we use to write poetry, because it's there to help you perform. So if you get comfortable with it, if you know how to use it, if you feel okay and you can practice and you can get ready and you can have experience with a microphone, you'll feel better and you'll do better. So we'll just have a bit more time. Who would like to come up again? Would you like to? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Molly. I'm actually going to take her off the stand. Oh. And I'll be reading a poem by Ian Parks from a collection called Shell Island, called The Catch. When my father married, he gave up fishing for good and sold his rod and line to buy the marriage bed. But his dreams are haunted still by damp riverbanks and mist, where he stoops to dip a net, lifting the catch from memory in a rehearsal of regret. The reel unwinds inside his head.
Woo! Woo!
Putting it back on for the next person.
That was wonderful. See, as soon as you had that in your hand, you seemed so much more confident, so much more ready. It was just a part of you, and that was a wonderful thing. Just to say, maybe a little bit closer, because as you're talking, you're going back and forth, but that's natural, that happens. You just want to make sure you can hear your own voice being sent out to everyone else in the same way. But that was awesome. Would you maybe like to come up? Wonderful.
Hello, I'm also called Danny. So this is a poem by Caitlin called Quitting Will Improve Your Health. If you asked me to, I'd quit smoking. I know you wouldn't ask me to, but if it's the reason you skirt my morning kiss, I'd break all my fags in half. Make the papers into, I'd soak the filters in water, make the papers into confetti to celebrate our union with. If the smell offended you, I scrub every inch of my skin, scour the scent from my flesh, until it shone in carnation red and pink petal tones.
Woo! Woo! That was wonderful. It's interesting to see how many people are actually choosing to pick up the mic now they know that that's an option and it's easy to do, because you don't see many people doing that open mics usually, so other than musicians. It's our microphone too. It's not just singers. We can do it too. Let's take it back. Is there anyone else who'd like to come up and have a little bit of practice? You want to come back up? Go on then, love.
I've got unfinished business with this microphone. I want to try the whole taking it out of the stand and walking around a bit thing, because I've never really done that before. So this is a poem from the same collection I was reading earlier. It's called The Snail. Such a tiny thing, smaller than the nail on my little finger, slithering its way up the stalk of my sunflower, scissor-edged lower leaves, revealing its presence. Antennae, soft, opaque, microscopic drops of morning dew, ceaselessly searching, exploring, shell a perfect whirl of silver and grey. It progressed slowly, gracefully, sliding to another virgin leaf. So small, so perfect, I let it be. Thank you.
Woo! That was wonderful. How do you feel holding it compared to doing it?
I quite like it, actually. I think I might try that more often. Yeah.
That was wonderful. We've got a few more things to cover, and then have everyone have a little practice again. Anyone who's not can come up, and everyone can keep trying and just get comfortable, because that's what the space is about. So we've got another little intermission from Saul. Saul's going to talk to you all about checking a microphone is on and how to communicate to sounds and tech if anything's wrong with it.
Hello again. Yeah, pretty much your microphone will be on. This is one of these sort of anxious thoughts that we have as performers, not really being taught how to use equipment. But sound technicians are a proud people, and they're a very skilled group of people, and we can trust them with sound tech, pretty much. And also, there's not a lot of situations as sort of performance poets or spoken word performers where you're going to have to check that the mic's on. If you're at an open mic, you can see there's people speaking into the mic. It's an open mic. If you're at your own performance, if you're putting on your own show, there will be a sound technician, and you will want to sort of have a little bit of communication. I should think that you would have some communication with the sound technician, especially if you're sort of organizing a show and it's got multiple aspects, multiple sort of media. Pretty much just trust that they know what they're doing.
Yeah, that's basically all you need to know with that. I had this case for the first time ever where I was using a visual medium as well as my poetry at a performance recently, and there was sound techs, and there was other people on deck, and there was the organisers and the hosts, and there was a bunch of different people. The person you want to go to, the people in the tech booth, they know everything, they're in charge of that, and they're amazing. It's all going to be fine. Is there any questions on any of that, the technical side of it?
What about if you have anxiety and you worry about reading too fast or struggling to read the words because one thing's printed differently and it looks like an O and not a P?
If you mess up on stage, then you mess up on stage. I have a lot of anxiety, though you probably couldn't tell. And I mess up a lot when I'm reading, even off my phone. I'll switch words around. At the event I was talking about just now, at Good Emotions, I read a new poem for the first time ever that I'm turning into a zine, and I'm really proud of it, and I messed the best line up. It was a joke, and nobody got it because I messed it up. Did anybody notice, Sol?
They didn't.
Nobody noticed, because they're your poems, for one. Nobody's sitting there with a book going back and forth, and even if they are in a book, nobody's going to be checking to make sure you did line for line. Only you really notice if that helps at all, but I know that doesn't always help, because you know you've still stumbled over it, or got it wrong, or missed your cue, or anything else. The only thing I can say is, I know a lot of performers and poets, people who've been doing this for a long, long time, and they all still mess up from time to time. They all still get things wrong. They stumble over words. They miss a line, anything else. The easiest thing I found to do is, if it's a large part of your poem or your performance, get yourself sorted, take a deep breath, read it again, keep going. If you stop in the middle of performance and go, oh, sorry, I messed that one up, let me start again, and then you start fumbling again, all it does is set a tone for your audience that's kind of negative. It's the same way if you go on stage and you start negging yourself. So when poets go on stage and negging themselves, it's usually, hi, I've never done this before, and it's not really very good, and nobody likes my poetry, and you all will be really bored, but I'm going to read it anyway. Which I get is all actual genuine fears, but you're setting your audience up to think you're not going to be very good. You're setting your audience up, and sometimes they'll be pleasantly surprised, and it'll be a great thing. Other times, they're not preparing for an amazing performance because you're not preparing them for it. You want to be confident on stage. Be honest. If it is your first time, you want to let them know that, do it. That's completely fine. But if you're putting yourself down, even during the performance, if you're telling everyone how much you've messed up, or that you really wanted to get it right and it's gone wrong and you've forgotten your lines and you need to get your phone out and everything's a mess, you're just setting yourself for a bad tone. You are a performer. If you are on stage performing, you're a performer. If you are writing poetry and sharing it, you're a poet. You have claimed those titles, and nobody can take them away from you. Be confident, be proud, get yourself together, continue with the poem, or if you want to, read the line again. Just take it again and go for it. Everyone will love it anyway. You are being brave enough to do what most people can't do. You are surrounding yourselves with writing people and poetry people, but the general public, none of them wants to get on stage and do this because it's really embarrassing and really exposing, and it's scary. No one else can do it. You can do it. Be proud of yourself for that. Any kind of mistakes or errors, or stumbles, or worries, or anxiety, that's all part and package of it. Like, see, that's not even a phrase, part and package. It's parcel. I messed that one up. But now I've told you, you know I've messed that one up, and you're going to be like, in the back of your head, she knows nothing. Why is she giving this workshop? I feel like I could be doing that instead. These things happen, and that's okay. Sorry, that was a ramble. Does that all make sense? All good?
Yeah, that does.
Awesome. Right. Now, this may or may not go very well, because this part I'm going to be talking about reading without a microphone, which obviously this is all being recorded, so I'm going to need to tell you all this with a microphone. But there are many events where you won't have a microphone, where you'll be outdoors, or you'll be in an intimate setting, you'll be in a venue that just doesn't have them and doesn't need them. Maybe you're just reading for a group of people, a group of friends in a room. We host, Sol and I, and Eve, we do a monthly open mic night in Leeds where we take over and reclaim public spaces and do open word poetry, spoken word, prose, any kind of word performances. We are trying to expand what spoken word is, essentially, and allow people to be as experimental as they want to be. We don't use microphones. We turn up to a public space, we take it over with chairs and with soup for people and bring 30 people out and start performing, and then we take it all back and leave it as it was at the end. So you need these 30 people to hear you, even without a microphone. And a lot of that is just about projection. It's just about projection. If you can try, it's annoying. Nobody wants to speak loudly and cut over everyone else in a room. We're all taught to keep quiet, especially people born and raised as women. We are told to lower our voices and be quiet, but this isn't the time for that. You want people to hear you. It has to come from here, from your diaphragm. You have to be able to project. Don't be scared. Nobody's going to think you're shouting unless you are shouting. And I think most people know the difference between shouting and talking when they're doing it themselves. People want to hear you. You've got no microphone to hide behind. Just give it a practice at home. Give it a try. Read your poetry. See if maybe your friend can hear it from the other side of the room or even the other side of the house. Go out into the woods and read as loudly as you can, because there may be times where you have to read without a microphone. That can be scary, especially if you see it as a friend and a comfort blanket, which it can oftentimes become. But these are awesome things, and if you want to try it out, then come to Bone Down. The next one is on the 7th of December, and this is an exclusive because I haven't told anyone that yet. 7th of December, Bone Down. You should all be there.
Where is it?
This hasn't been announced yet, Peter. Last time I was on Love the Words, Peter's radio show, I accidentally announced where the next Bone Down was before we announced it. And you're not getting that out of me again. So follow the Instagram, check me out on Twitter, Kate is a Poet, if you want to know more.
Where have some of the past ones been? Just to give a sense.
We've
when
only
you
done
go.
2 so far.
2, okay.
The first one was in the bandstand. The abandoned one in Woodhouse Moor was in Woodhouse Ridge. So beautiful, picturesque. Right behind us, we had all the hills. Right in front of the performers, you had all the forested area. It was dramatic. It rained, and then there was a rainbow, and it was gorgeous. The second one was in the bandstand in Burley Park. It was the day before Halloween. We had pumpkins and fairy lights, and it was spooky, and it was wonderful. And the performances were even better because nobody had a microphone to hide behind. Nobody had any tech. It was just people gathering for the love of sharing their words. So there may be times for that. Either way, you guys can do it. You can. You don't need a microphone, but if you do need one, these are the things that we thought might be able to help. Now you've all had time to sit and think. Any other questions about the basic performance skills? Any questions you may think may be silly, stupid, obvious, anything like that?
So obviously the majority of open mic nights are in busy environments. Any kind of low sensory open mic nights you can think of?
Low sensory open mic nights. So I will give a little plug again for Bone Down because it is run by queer, disabled, neurodivergent people who obviously that is very important. There's no bright lights. There's not a lot of shouting or talking. You can easily leave the space because we're outdoors. If you're feeling triggered or overwhelmed, you can leave if you want to. There's no microphones, so things aren't too loud. There's not much tech. It's as basic as can be, so it allows people that ease of access. On the mic at Left Bank, run by Leeds Poetry Festival, Poppy Jennings and Jack Collins is amazing. Once again, it's a large area. There's no music playing in between things. There's not a lot of activity. You can sit on your table and be comfortable sitting there all night long if needs be. You can step out if there's performances that are getting too much, too triggering. I've done it before. If things are getting too stimulating for me, I will just leave. Nobody minds. It's a very, very supportive atmosphere. Sound bites. Heart in Headingley is also one that may be a really great idea. It's been running for a while, it's well established, it's quite small, and it's within the Arts and Community Centre in Headingley. So essentially a cafe setting, very comforting, very nice. Is that okay?
Yes.
There are 1,000,001 open mics. I'm going to be putting out a little sheet online on my Instagram, my Twitter, and possibly some other social medias on Kate as a Poet, on everything we've covered here. Just in an easier way. You can look it over, you can see it. You don't have to try remember everything I've said. If you want to look back over it, you can do that. That will all be going out tomorrow. So I will list as many open mic nights and poetry nights as I can on there for you. You should also really know that there's a fantastic resource that Poppy Jennings Leeds Poetry Festival has put together. On the Leeds Poetry Festival website, there is a poetry calendar, and it has all the big poetry events going on. If you know of a poetry event that's not on there, send a message over. It'll be added on there. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I will put a link to that when I post all of the information as well. So check it out tomorrow. I can send it over to Peter as well to have it shared, so you can get it from the Chapel FM, writing on air, social medias. Sol, anything else to say before we have people try again?
I think we've covered everything.
Wonderful. Well, we have a little bit of time left, so would anyone like to come up and practice with the microphone again while you have this time? Woo!
All right, step one. Does this appear to be my right height? No, I'm bending down. Being the tall bugger I am, that seems to be better. Right, I'm going to attempt to read typewriter writing. Is that the word? Typewriter typing? Sweet. The day is written on the page of a notebook, another donut because of the negative. The whole is the negative. Cake is always a wedge, a chunk, a plus to the daily total. I add and I tot. Sweet treats I allow myself, plaguing my mind through the day until I can stuff, shovel, savour, licking icing off sticky fingers. Waffles for breakfast, pastries for lunch. I'll skip dinner to eat chocolate tonight. I've never had a problem. Once more I allow, once more I tempt fate, once more I am nauseous. We will empty and begin again. A packet of bonbons, 824. My body is a pinball machine. I am playing the game. Lovers tell me I taste of honey, that I'm a treat they cannot deny themselves. There's only so much sweetness one can take. Caitlin McKenna.
Woo! That was amazing. See, the microphone adjusting doesn't have to be awkward. It doesn't have to take away from the performance. In fact, it just means you're at a stage where you're comfortable and confident enough that you can just get up and do it.
I've got a question, Kate. How do you finish like a poem? Because to let people know that you've finished it. I'm always not very good. I'm useless at that.
Yeah, that is the difficult one. I know a lot of people who, the minute they've said the last word of their poem, they just go, thank you. And that is fine, that's okay, but you are cutting away from the impact of the end if the minute you finish your poem, you then put another word in to let people know you're done. You can literally just take a second and pause. If people don't realise that's the end of the poem afterwards, that's fine. I oftentimes at the end, I'll pause, I'll wait. If nobody's clapping or applauding or whatever, I'll just go, thank you. And then it happens. But you want to make sure that there's that little bit of a break, if that makes sense. Just let them digest it. Let it sit.
You've chosen to end the poem there for a reason. You've chosen to end it on that line or that word for a reason. And you're all amazing poets, I'm completely sure. So it's going to work well. It's going to be a good choice. Let it sit. Let the impact end. And then you can say thank you. Then you can say, that's me. You can do a little movement, little thing, whatever you want. This is all up to you, guys. This is anything you want to do. You're the performers, you're the poets. But I think it's important to give the weight to your words that they deserve. Does that answer great?
Yeah, good.
Wonderful. Any other questions? Does anyone else want to hop up here in the last few minutes? Woo!
I wanted to do one whilst holding the mic, if that's okay. So, is there this one? Is this any good? Ouch. I pulled the splinter of you from under my nails. I could have built a matchstick house for us, from all the fragments of you, piercing my skin.
Woo! That was, could you just wait there a second?
Okay.
So, the only thing I'd suggest is, as you do it, you did the same thing when you came up to the mic last time, where you bend over, and it may be a nerves thing or a confidence thing, but you'll give the impression that you're more confident, and then you'll feel it if you just raise your head up. Don't apologise, we're here to do all this. Do you want to maybe try it again?
Yeah, I'll try it. It's in a short
Awesome.
poem. Let's see if it makes it. So, I see. Ouch. Say? Hold it up. Okay. See, I'm quite tall, so. Ouch. I pulled the splinter as you from under my nails. I could have built a matchstick house for us from all the fragments of you, piercing my skin.
Woo! Awesome. So that's it. It's just about prepping yourself in the right way. You'll feel more confident. The audience will see you as being more confident, and the poetry will perform better if you're doing it that way. Because if you've got faith in your words, if it looks like you believe in what you're saying, you believe it's good enough and worthy enough to get up on stage and share with people, they're going to believe it too. And that's the secret. You can write the best poetry in the world, but if when you're trying to perform it, I can't hear you, I can't see you, you look nervous and timid, you're telling me already that the poetry's bad by telling me that nobody wants to hear it and you've never read it before and everything else, I'm not maybe going to see it as being as great as it is, and that's just part of performance, that's part of sharing your poetry. It's all a package. We have to consider it all together. And straight away, you seem so much more confident, so much more in yourself as soon as you raised your back, raised your head. And that was awesome to see. Anyone else? Would you like to do one more? Go for it. You've got the space, you've got the time, you might as well.
This one's called Love Letters, and it's written by Kate himself. Damn. Unintended, uninvited, you opened me like an envelope and read my content. A federal crime you committed, enveloping me in your arms, within the bed, within the cold, I allow you inside.
Woo! That was wonderful. So you see, as soon as you get a little bit of practice in there, you feel more comfortable. It's going to be easier to do, and it's going to be more enjoyable because I love performing. I love reading my poetry for people, and I really hope if you guys are deciding to do this, or if you already do it, you do too. I really hope that you want to perform your poetry, or you are performing your poetry because you love doing it, or you want to love doing it. And the more you do it, the more confident you get, the more you're going to love doing it because it's really fun and it's really exciting, and you can meet some amazing people even if you don't want to pursue a literary career, because I've met some of my best friends this way, and it's a wonderful thing to see them and support them and encourage them where they're going to go. Would you like to come up and go again, or you have got a question?
So I'm working out how to phrase this, just because I'm an associate artist with Mind the Gap. I don't know if you've heard of us. We have a lot of we are a theatre company with a lot of people with learning disabilities and a wide range of ability. And I was just trying to think, when doing performance, sometimes the way that we've been describing how to perform poetry can be quite restricting and very ableist. Do you have any, there's some, for example, some might not necessarily have the speech in order to be able to perform, for example, but would like to have their poetry performed as well. What would the stance be, so to speak, if they had a surrogate person perform for them? Would that be acceptable, or would that be something to consider? I'm just trying to think of access in this regard.
Funny enough, you mentioned that, because I did the showcase here last night. I hosted a queer house party. It's not the exact same situation, but we had a performer pull out due to illness on the day. They got in touch with me and they asked me whether I would mind reading one of their poems, because they still had friends and family tuning in and they wanted to support this festival and they really wanted to be part of the programme. I saw no problem with that at all. The reason I'm hosting events and the reason I like to put together events is that I want to share these artists and I want to upraise them and I want to give them a chance to have their work heard. So to me, there's no issue at all with having somebody else step in to read for you, asking somebody who's already performing to read for you, or the host. There's no problem with that. If somebody wants the work performed, there are ways we can do that. And as a community, we should all be working together to make sure that's possible. Most of the poets and artists that I work with in Leeds are very, very comfortable with doing whatever they can to support disabled artists, to support people who are neurodivergent, who are anxious, mentally ill, queer, any kind of impediment that would stop them from being able to get up and perform or to come to events. We feel there should be a way to work around it. And we would absolutely, part of the reason we're doing this event right here, right now, is because I was at a festival in the summer and the host for my segment is in a wheelchair. And the hosts of the night, the organisers of the event, of this large festival, didn't know how to change the microphone and adjust it so that they could use the microphone. The host of our segment in a wheelchair couldn't have the microphone because they didn't know how to do that, and I felt horrendous. And me and that poet talked later, and they were talking about accessibility at different nights in Leeds, and that has been part of the reason why for Bone Down we're taking things outdoors, because a lot of venues just aren't built for it, and we don't think that's right, and we don't think that's fair. Is that okay?
That certainly clears up the question. I think just for the record, it's just that I know a lot of artists from Mind the Gap in particular don't want to perform or call themselves poets because of the lack of access that there is in places. They have a voice, they want to say their voice, but because of these, before I've said issues, it's kind of been something that's been at the forefront of my mind to try and find a way around it. And I think your work sounds very steering towards the right area.
No, it's something that I think should be on the minds of anyone involved in organising or creating literary work in Leeds. What I love most about this festival in particular is the fact that it is so accessible. You've got different ways of accessing. If you can't get down, if you can't get to this actual venue, you can do it in 2 other ways for most performances. You have the ability to get there from home, but this venue itself is accessible, and there are ways around that. I think you don't have to perform to be a poet. And I think that the idea that you would is really, really harmful. And hopefully we can all work together to change that. And hopefully we can work together to make performance a little bit more accessible. And we will be in touch because we have to work something out. And hopefully we can work together to help your friends and the people you work with. Wonderful. So I think that's our time. Thank you all so much for coming. It's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you all for getting up and being part of this workshop with me, and I hope you've all learned a lot. I'll be around doing the open mic just after this. Please stick around. Please read me some of your poetry because I'm really excited to hear it all.
Thanks. Thanks ever so much, Caitlin and Sol. That was absolutely brilliant. I've learned so much from that, and that was fantastic. So, Caitlin, if people want to be part of the open mic, how do they do that? Do they approach you, or how does it go?
Yeah, so I will be downstairs from now. I'll be wearing a hat. I'll put mine on. It'll be a little dad hat, baseball cap, as will Sol, who's wearing a black hoodie. If you approach either of us, we can put you down straight away for the open mic list. If not, we will be in the room from 7 o'clock. You can approach either of us up here. We're not going to get started just right away because we're going to wait for some people to sign up. If halfway through the night you want to sign up, that's cool. Come see me. We'll work it out.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll see you later after a brief interval.
From Seacroft, East Leeds, Leeds, Yorkshire, Europe, the world, the universe, the multiverse.